In this video, I'll show you my exact aim settings as well as some tips and tricks to help make every gun feel easy to control. I'll break down the hidden in-game settings, explain how recoil actually works, and give you my go-to training method to help you hit more shots, starting right after you finish watching this video. We're going to start off with fix your settings. We're going to dive into aim settings, mouse and sensitivity options to make recoil in this game easier. Yes, there is a correct way to do it. Then we're going to understand recoil, horizontal, vertical, recoil pattern versus firing stability, and a few other things to help you master your understanding of recoil in FPS games, starting right now. So in game settings, you're going to want to turn on this scope magnification, adapts automatically. Under graphics, you're going to want to go down to scope magnification. I would turn this off, as well as weapon motion blur right here, turn this off. FOV, this is personal preference, so I would try 100. If that feels too narrow, I would try 110, and then if that feels too narrow, I would go to 120. One thing to understand with FOV, the higher the FOV, you're warping your image as you increase your FOV, so the center where you aim and where the enemy is going to be when you're aiming is going to appear smaller. So just keep that in mind. The higher your FOV, the smaller your enemy is going to be in the center of your screen. Now, as far as mouse and aiming sensitivity settings go, this is what I like to do. So to start off, you're gonna wanna find your mouse DPI. So find one DPI and use it across every game. It's something you don't really wanna change. And it's essentially the sensitivity of your mouse, really the DPI. You're changing the area that your sensor scans. And it's something you wanna use in a number like 400, 800, 1600, 3200, 6400. I would recommend, if you don't have any clue, start with 800. That's kind of the standard in 2025 for pro players across every FPS game. As far as mouse sensitivity goes in game, your general sense right here, I like 2.5. It's kind of on the lower end. I play like a low medium sense. If 800 DPI, you could try a number like 3. And so once you try that sensitivity, then you can go into game and just practice your, does it feel good? Does it feel bad? Snap between these targets. Are you over aiming, under aiming? You don't want to focus too much on how accurate you're being. You just want to do this and see what your brain tells you. Is it saying too slow? Is it saying too fast? And adjust accordingly, okay? So once you lock that number in, the next thing you're gonna wanna do, set sensitivity per zoom plus MDV. This is what I like doing. So MDV is basically your monitor distance, and it's a number based off the resolution of your monitor. So if you play 1920 by 1080p or 2560 by 1440, use a number like 1.78. And then the sensitivity per zoom means when you're using an optic that's in the 1 to 2x range. So iron sights, red dots, and then 2x or less optics, you can fine-tune a sensitivity that feels better for that zoom level. So me, as you notice right here, everything's basically on 1 except for super high mag and super low magnification. I like 0.9 for my irons and red dots. Why do I like that? Well, because when you're aiming down sights, you can kind of slow down your sensitivity a little bit just to help with little twitches and micro adjustments. This is going to be a setting dependent on the DPI of your mouse, the mouse pad you're using, the mouse skates you're using, all of these unique factors. But overall, lowering this a little bit, I wouldn't recommend lowering it more than like 0.2 because you want to try to keep your hip fire sensitivity and your ADS sensitivity 1-to-1. And when your sensitivity is 1-to-1, that means your brain only knows one sensitivity in game. I know what I'm saying is hypocritical because my sensitivity isn't 1-to-1, but most FPS coaches and aim trainers that you talk to, they will say your hip fire sensitivity should be the same as your ADS sensitivity. That way your brain develops muscle memory better. Muscle memory is really important with aiming and gaming, so less variables you give your brain when it comes to the feel of the game or sensitivity, the better you're going to perform and more consistent you're going to perform. So that's one thing to keep in mind. This is a trick I learned from PUBG. So this is the real secret sensitivity setting I have for you guys. And you can use this on mobile, PC, whatever. Vertical sensitivity. So by default, it's just going to be 1, meaning it's the same as your mouse sensitivity, but you can give yourself a quick multiplier, anything like 1.1. 1.1 is pretty intense for a game like this. Vertical recoil isn't too bad. I would recommend anything from 1.05 to to 1.1. And what this is going to do is it means you have to pull down less on your mouse pad because you're increasing the vertical sensitivity. So you pull down less, which means there's less recoil. So this is a setting you can do to make every gun's vertical recoil way easier to control. Now, just be careful when you're using some guns that have very little recoil. You need to be aware of this because you may be pulling down too much. This is a trick every pro player uses in PUBG. Look up Aches Left on YouTube, Tiggleton, anyone else you could think of that's just cracked out PUBG player. They're going to be running a vertical sensitivity that's higher than their horizontal. That way they have to pull down less, essentially making vertical recoil negligible. And then really everything else is kind of feeling it out. So like I said, I like running my red dots with the 0.9. So what you can do is come into range here and do the same thing as before. Just snap between targets. Again, you're not moving in the range and the enemies aren't moving, which is very unlikely in match. Very rarely when you play Warfare are you going to swing a corner and it's like someone just standing there, and then you can just stand here still like this too and get the kill. Most of the time they're going to be moving, you're going to be moving, so it's a lot more difficult in game. But still, this is just a rule of thumb. Snap between these targets and see how it feels, right? Does it feel bad, good? Don't worry about your accuracy too much. Just do this and listen to what your brain's saying. Is your brain saying good? Is it saying too fast, too slow, too little, too much? Listen to what your brain's saying when you do this. And again, don't worry about snapping right to the enemy. Just focus on if it feels good or bad and adjust accordingly. When you're aiming, like right here, I'm looking on this target. My eyes are not focused on the reticle, the red dot of my optic. They're focused on the enemy's chest, and I'm focused like where my reticle is right here. I kind of always tend to focus either center mass, so like thorax here, or the head. So you want to use your peripheral vision to assess where your reticle is. Me personally, this is what I do. I aim, use my eyes, hard focus on the player model, and then my reticle is in my peripheral. So I'll notice if I get off spray while I'm spraying, I notice that in my peripheral and I'll adjust. But I never aim my eyes on my reticle. And so when I snap between a target, let's say I want to snap to this guy, I'm not focused on my reticle during the snap and the peripheral of the enemy. I'm focused on the enemy and the peripheral of my optic, if that makes sense. You want to aim with your eyes, then your hand will follow and snap to it. That's how you're going to lock in and make your sensitivity feel good. And all of these tricks combined should help you aim better in game. All right, so now we're going to hop into section 2. How does recoil actually work in Delta Force? Well, recoil essentially can be found under the stat called control right here. You always want to go into details and look at control. So right here, full auto vertical, full auto horizontal. So the graph on the left is going to be the default graph for the gun. The graph on the right with the green dots is going to be how it is with all of these attachments that you have applied. So what this tells us is as you shoot bullet 1 and then bullet 2, 3, 4, and so on as you go through the mag. So as you shoot your gun, it's going to go up and then curve to the right. That means on your mouse pad, you're going to pull down and to the left. So you basically take this image here, flip it and rotate it, and then it's going to be how you pull down on your mouse pad. At the bottom, there's this thing called firing stability. So these two stats here directly relate to this. Firing stability is very important, and it's not really shown in this graph, but the difference of firing stability and recoil is this. So this build right here is an easy to control gun. It's an SG. The gun by default has a very easy recoil pattern, but very poor firing stability. So we can notice this through how much the reticle is bouncing and how much screen shake there is across the player model, the weapon model, and especially the optic frame. All of that shake and bounce and visual motion is the firing stability essentially. Let's look at something that's the opposite. Easy firing stability, but very poor recoil. And the QCQ SMG is a perfect example of this. This gun has very good default firing stability, but pretty poor recoil control. And how is the recoil control poor? We'll look at this path right here. It goes up to the right, to the left, so it's this zigzag left to right motion throughout the entire spray. But the firing stability, unlike the previous gun, look at how still everything is. So the optic has a little bounce to it, but it's nothing bad. The reticle doesn't really have a whole lot of bounce. It's pretty easy, but you see how the gun deviates way off to the left, way off to the right. That is the recoil pattern of the gun. Okay, it's gonna go left, right, left. So that's the difference. The path and pattern is going to be found right in here and looking at this. So we know this gun has a bad path, but the firing stability when we shoot it, it basically doesn't do anything. It's just very still and steady and constant. So that's how we know this gun's recoil pattern is the problem, not the firing stability. Alright guys, and to finish off this section of the video, firing stability versus recoil pattern, these are the best grips in the game that help with those two things, firing stability and recoil pattern. As you can see, I list out muzzles, foregrips, rear grips, and stocks. And next to the name of the attachment, I say what it does specifically. Use this as a reference to help understand what attachments are worth using and what they help with. And of course, remember, each build you make, certain things may matter more than others, and it all kind of goes off of feel and the goal of your build. Alright guys, we're hopping into section 3, aim practice that actually works. How to use the information I just gave you guys in those previous 2 sections and translate it in game. Often I recommend you warm up before you just hop into a match. Everyone plays at a different level. Some people don't need to warm up, some people do. So if you want to warm up for Delta Force, this is what I would do. Select the gun you want to use for this play session. Throw on only these attachments. The extended mag, 45 or 60, whichever one. For optic, run a 2x minimum. This Prism 2x is a great optic to warm up with. You could even run the Viewpoint 3x. Throw on the max range barrel or some barrel to give you more range. And then that's it, is set the targets, you know, some at 50, I put another target at 38. So then what you want to do is just practice your sprays and just drill out sprays for 5-10 minutes with just this attachments. Nothing to help you with recoil. Throw on some music, a podcast, and just vibe out 5-10 minutes. Then when you throw on your actual build that you use in game, it's going to feel like a cheat code. Like you seriously are going to feel like you have aim hack or whatever it's called. Again, I would recommend drilling out the reps. Just get those sprays in with no attachments for like 5-10 minutes. Switch to your build like this one right here, run it for 2 minutes in the practice, and then hop into match. GG's. You guys are going to be absolutely frying. Okay, so these are the tips and tricks I use. Again, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or other advice to other people, comment down below and share your knowledge with others. Help people out. Anyways guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something and have fun gaming. All right, I'll catch you guys in the next one.